Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now let's talk about this Paragon situation once again. Now I already uploaded a video yesterday where it was a bit more raw and a bit more unfiltered, kind of like initial opinion about the things that I read. And now I have had much more time to talk to more people, to read more comments, to listen what people actually think. And one thing is clear, there's a huge amount of outrage, but it's not like entire communities united on this issue, like it hardly is. There are different points of view, different perspectives. And in this video, I'm going to explain where some people are coming from, why they think the way they do. And in the end, kind of reiterate what I think and what exactly irked me to begin with this thing yesterday, and why, no matter how much I think about it, it still does not feel right to me. So let's start with the first group, basically just not caring about it. That first group could be the group that I am in as well, because I read the requirements, Act 6, done, sorry, Act 7, done, 3 rank 4s, have it, Day 1 Paragon, don't give a shit. I could be in that group, but I'm not. And I'm going to explain why I'm not later on as well. But there is that group, and we need to acknowledge that they genuinely just, you know, are Paragons Day 1, and they don't care how or what or whether anybody else ever becomes Paragon. And I think it's a fairly silly position to take, because, you know, if Kabam does these things and it pushes a ton of people away from the game, it's effectively a net negative to the game. So, you know, everybody should care about these issues as far as I'm concerned. But nonetheless, that group exists, and, you know, let's leave them be, you know. Then the second group of the players are the ones who are happy that they're going to have something to work for. They wanted a new progression title for ages, and that's correct. I wanted one for ages too. I do think it's long overdue at this point. And, you know, they're not going to be Paragons Day 1, but they are happy. They have something to work for. They are given a goal, a target. They know exactly what they must do. Now they're working on their game plans. They're going to be keeping their eyes open for content, so on and so forth. So they're going to divide their effort to achieve a goal, which ultimately is how a lot of people gain fulfillment in the game, and they do not particularly care about the details, again. And that is perfectly valid opinion to have. The opinion that nobody is entitled to be this Paragon player from day 1, and, you know, it's going to be fun to work towards it. And that, again, is a significant portion of player base. And in my opinion, if you have that viewpoint, then you're just lacking nuance, and you're closing your eyes on fairly big leaps of logic here. But without trying to criticize people in that group, still, healthy attitude, good for you. The most important thing is that these groups of different opinions do not start to get friction with each other and start fighting, which unfortunately inevitably happens, which is part of the reason why I might want to make this video. I want to explain all of these sides, and hopefully, you know, next time you're in a chat when somebody says, I think this is perfectly fine, you know, you don't get triggered, or vice versa, or something like that, because there's a lot of fighting happening on forums and in the line chats. That being said, obviously on forums we have a group of white knights who will always push their nose up Kabam's rectum, no matter the subject, no matter what they say. So the fighting on forums is unsurprising. But what I'm trying to say is it's important not to kind of like be overly confrontational with this. And if you do think otherwise, you need just to introduce new ones. Because it is a healthy way to look at things where, you know, I have a goal. But if you do have that viewpoint, you're not paying attention to details, you're not paying attention to nuance, and you're not asking yourself whether that is, you know, fair, realistic, and, you know, a right goal to have, whether that is how it should be, which, you know, is a bigger question that I'm going to address later on in the video. And obviously then there is the third group of players, which is outraged. And the third group of players is arguably the biggest group of players, or at the very least the biggest group of players that care about this. And let me also get this thing absolutely straight. I do think that there are huge amount of self-entitled whiny players stomping their feet. People who are fairly fresh Thronebreakers, maybe have completed, you know, Act 7 purchase, 10,000 unit offer, had the first rank 4, and, you know, think that they are playing the same game as people who have like 6 rank 4s or 5 rank 4s and 100 rank 3s and stuff like that. I have heard stories of people exploring Act 7 with like 2 rank 3s, you know, and it makes sense that, you know, that player does not necessarily get included with the larger group of players, even though in past it possibly could have had happened. And I'm gonna get to it. And ultimately, we need to kind of like decide now, what do you think is fair? What do you think is the right thing? And why does this feel different for so many people? And here is where we need to take a look at, first of all, the requirements of, let's say, your non-spending variety player to be Paragon on day 1. Complete all story content in game. Okay, is that enough? No. Complete all Karina challenges volume 1 and 2. Okay, you know, some of them are absolute BS, but okay, fine, it's permanent content. Playing higher tier war competitive alliance. Now that is the first major problem. Never ever story progression and your title had anything to do with alliance, nor it should. This game should allow you to play, you know, how you want, give you some flexibility, and never had it before punished you for not being in like super high tier alliance, nor it ever kind of really came into play when it comes to accessing the next progression title. It was additional, optional, extra. Now it's a mandatory requirement here on their own list. So that is the first major change. That alone would be enough to muddy the waters here. You need to be in high tier competitive alliance. But that is the least of offenses here. Because alongside being in competitive alliance for first time in the history of ever, they require you to have purchased an offer. Since when does purchasing an offer has anything to do with you as a player or progression? There's nothing. Never has it ever been a requirement for you to have grinded out 10 or 12,000 units and purchase a specific offer. Now, this is again a perfect metaphor of exactly why this game's going in the wrong direction. Because right now, you have to grind and have to purchase these offers. Never have it before been the case. All the time, ever doing content, it's fine. And here is going to be the biggest one, because they want people to have a time machine. It's not even enough to purchase, you know, the offers and play in high tier competitive alliance and, you know, do all the permanent content. They want you to invent time machine, go back 6 months in time and do content that's no longer available, be that Summer of Pain or Grandmaster Gauntlet. And that is the biggest issue. That is not permanent content. And temporary content has never come into play for these things. Now it does. So basically, Kabam now demands of your average grinder to invent a time machine, go back in time, grind 10,000 units, purchase the Act 7 completion offer, go back in time a bit further, do Grandmaster's Gauntlet and Summer of Pain, and, you know, be of wariness that you also need to timely start working on Korean challenges. And here's why it's wrong. And here is why it pisses me off so much, as it does. When Thronebreaker title came out, only thing you had to do, instead of all of this fancy list, instead of all of these points and then some, only thing you had to do is complete story content in the game. It has always been the case since Act 4. Complete that content, get the progression title. Complete that content, get the progression title. With Thronebreaker, they did change it up, where you need to, you know, explore Act 6, but exploration of Act 6 guaranteed you a tier 5 CC crystal, which guaranteed you to be able to take a champion to rank 3 and therefore immediately qualify. That is the big change. This time they have stretched their thin-headed, insane math so far that you have virtually had to do everything. But it's irresponsible to ask that of your players because they did not know. Nobody had this prior knowledge. You don't have a time machine. Nobody has a time machine. They can't go back in time and do the things that somebody didn't. But always it has been that. For instance, they announced the Thronebreaker title. You have 1 month. Okay, if you want to be Thronebreaker day 1, explore Act 6. Yes, Act 6 was harder, But you knew exactly what you had to do. It was there in the game available to you. It didn't involve you grinding units and purchasing offers. It didn't involve you, going back in time and doing content that's no longer here. It didn't include you doing some random solo objectives. It included you going in the story content and exploring it. What's worse, there was also Abyss. So you even had an alternative. There were 4 tier 5 CC crystals, fully formed, guaranteed for you in permanent content in the game. You could do one path of Abyss or 100% of Act 6. And that's it. And you could become Thronebreaker day 1. And you knew that in advance, and you could do it. And again, it didn't depend on you grinding arena for offers. It didn't include you playing high-tier competitive alliance, nothing. It has never been the case, because this is literally stretching it to the max and then borrowing some to justify this high cost. That is why I disagree with it. That is why I think the least they can do is reduce it to 2. This is a shameless marketing ploy, obviously, because everybody knows that these requirements right here exist in order to boost spring cleaning sales. Because now they have created widespread anger, but not only anger. Alongside widespread anger and panic, they have created an enormous demand and willingness to do what it takes to get to the goal, as people always do. And there will be a huge amount of people who spend money that they perhaps cannot afford or perhaps wouldn't have wanted to spend just because of this announcement and just because of what Kabam has done here. One thing is business strategies and earning money, and Kabam is a company that nobody in the world will ever accuse of not trying to earn money. But another thing is demanding things you have no right demanding of your players. In this case, you can be a summoner that has done all the content, that has proven itself in everything that's happening right now. You're not going to be Paragon, even though you should. And without being Paragon, you're going to be locked out from these new exclusive solo objectives or all other goodies that by all means you should have access to. And again, to make it clear, I don't mean the people who have like 6 rank 3s and manage to 100% Act 4 or Act 7 and or buy the completion offer and squeeze their way up to 1 rank 4 or something like that. I do agree that something had to be done to kind of make sure that this Paragon title means more and it doesn't automatically get oversaturated with players. I can agree with that. What I cannot agree with is demanding your players to go back in time, do the things that they did not know and had no way of knowing that they have to do in content that no longer exists, or demanding that your players purchase a specific offer, or even playing high-tier competitive alliance. That's where the problem lies for me. Forever and ever it has been, do the story content, and you're going to get the new progression level, because the rewards are there for the second requirement. So no, I do think Kabam has fucked up. I do think Kabam has fucked up royally. I do think that they made the outrage bigger by announcing these special solo objectives only for Paragon players. So this is a big thing that people are pissed off right now. And I do think that they made it, again, even worse by not announcing rewards for this. Because if this is a way to be Paragon at the time of launch, and there's enough rewards for it, that will calm people down, for sure. And I do think Kabam is doing very, very poor job managing this entire situation, which really does frustrate me. All of these things, like 80% of frustration right now that is here, could be avoided if they would be clear in their communication. Or have, a reasonable, logical plan. So ultimately, my personal view is that I disagree with the 3 rank 4 requirement at the moment because of everything that I just explained. That Kabam has no right demanding time travel from their summoners or doing things that, nobody knew to do, or playing in high-tier competitive alliance. Always it has been For story progression, the thing that mattered was story content. You explore story content, you get next progression level. This is the first time they do it differently. Even Thronebreaker was the first title that required you to have a specific roster requirement, but they included it in Exploration Rewards of Act 6, and you had alternatives in Abyss, and, you know, other avenues of TFICC. This time, you virtually have to do everything, which is just not right. And that's why I'm upset, because I genuinely believe that is not right. And again, if you can ignore all of that and you can be happy, and if you think that it's good to have a goal, you can still think it's good to have a goal, but agree that whoever set the goal made a mistake and did it poorly and wrongly, which is, you know, what I think. I think the goal is set wrong. I don't think it should be 3 rank 4s. Simple. Or if they wanted to make it 3 rank 4s, they needed to release a piece of content that more easily, or if they wanted to be 3 rank 4s, well, quite frankly, they just needed to include 3 rank 4 rank up materials in the story content, or close to it, or in between Kareen challenges and story content in the worst case. That is what I said. And again, all of this together just empathizes how less and less of the game principles and, you know, starting kind of rules Kabam subject themselves to, how further and further they are compromising themselves and what makes sense in the name of milking, you know, money out of everybody. None of the things, none of historical precedent, none of anything matters to them as long as they get to make a few extra dollars in a special sale or something. Of course, it's not a few extra dollars, it's, you know, hundreds of thousands, but that is why I have a problem with. They're asking things of players that they have no right of asking, and they are stepping further and further and further away from the guiding principles. Initially, new progression title was directly defeat this boss, get a title, complete this boss, get a title. They made Thronebreaker different, but at the very least, there were like four catalysts in the game by the time they introduced Thronebreaker. So anybody who read that, oh, there's going to be a new title, could go and get it. Right now, nobody has time machines. So, I do think if Kabam has any shred of, you know, self-respect, dignity, they will reduce that requirement to 2, because I do think 2 is manageable. In between story content, the offer maybe, but that should be optional, and then Korean challenges and whatever else. I do think 2 is reasonable. So I do, you know, publicly call for Kabam. Reduce it to 2 and admit that you're wrong. Because it's okay to be wrong. Everybody is. Because the way it stands right now, it's clearly a change, a new turn of events, motivated by nothing else but greed. So let me know what you guys think. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about